This is the Rebel Author Podcast, where we talk about books, business, and occasionally bad words. Hello, Rebels, and welcome to episode 262 of the Rebel Author Podcast. Today, I'm talking to Liz Wilcox all about email marketing and how to level up your game. In last week's episode, Dana Pittman, Matt Goodall said, "This was another insightful episode. Always useful to revisit and hear the tips for crafting deeper characters, especially the villains and antagonists." In personal news and updates then, that good, guys, that good. I am supposed to be in edits, and theoretically I am editing this week, but I am behind on the book. End of last week I realised that I was trying to force what is an external conflict story, the last book, into internal conflict, and it just wasn't working, because in a romance, obviously when you hit the last book in a trilogy, the internal kind of conflict and interpersonal conflict between the two characters is over once you reach the end of the Dark Night of the Soul and they kind of resolve it. And so I was like, why isn't it working? Blah, blah, blah. And then obviously it's because it's all about the big bad. So I skeleton drafted my way to the end of the book, and I've had to go back, and I'm starting from chapter 1 and editing forward. And then when I get to the missing chapters, I will then revert to drafting. So it's not at all my normal process. So I'm finding it quite hard, a little bit demoralised, if I'm honest. It's been a tough week, just for other reasons as well. And tougher still knowing that I am unlikely to hit my deadline, which is going to put into jeopardy shipping the Kickstarter on time, essentially, or on the deadline that I wanted to ship it to. So yeah, it's going to be a tricky one. And then I suppose in other news, we are still running the Kickstarter, which is super exciting. We are, as of this morning, just over 44,000 English pounds. What the actual fuck? Are you kidding me? I don't even know how to process it. I tried last night when I was talking to Rachel, where we recorded a Black Heron episode, and I just don't know how to process it. It's astonishing, to be perfectly honest, and I'm extremely happy, extremely pleased, and I can't wait to start packing cute little boxes and signing all the books. So yeah, thank you. If you happen to be supporting, I'm extremely grateful. And if you are an author who would like to learn about Kickstarter, then please do go and have a look at mine. And yeah, hopefully last week's episode was helpful. All right, the Rebel of the Week this week is Jacqui. He says, "I have 2 dogs and a big backyard, and my cranky neighbour has a big yard but no fence, so he keeps his dog in a pen which borders my fence. His poor dog cries and cries, and although I've reported it to the local council and the RSPCA, they won't do anything because the pen is of legal size, even though it's tiny. I should mention that my neighbour doesn't take the dog out of the pen even to walk him. I've literally never seen the dog outside of the pen, and although my neighbour has kids, no one ever pats or plays with him. So the rebellion began when his dog Rusty began digging under the fence to get into my backyard. Being the helpful person I am, I started digging from my side until he was liberated. He had the best afternoon running around with my dogs, playing under the sprinkler and generally living his best life. That night, I popped him back into his pen, planning on making this a daily rebellion, only to have my neighbour block the tunnel on his side. Grr. Not to be deterred, I dropped a chair over the fence into the pen and taught Rusty to jump onto it and then into my arms so I could lift him over. Now, Rusty spends his days playing with my dogs, lazing on my lawn and being taken for walks. I literally, good for fucking you, because I'm kind of disgusted that people treat animals like that. I mean, I get that they do, but also, if you're happy to do that, why would your neighbor not just be grateful? Like, I hate people. I hate people when they behave like that. Like, I don't understand it. Like, why would you not treat an animal with kindness? Just don't get an animal. Just don't get a dog. Like, if you don't want to look after it, don't fucking get it. It's not hard to not buy a dog. I'm going to end up ranting. No, I'm already ranting. But anyway, I love your rebellion and I love you for doing that. I think you're a wonderful human. If you would like to be a rebel of the week, please do send in your story. It can be any kind of rebellion, something big, something small, or something in between. You can email your rebel story to Becca over on rebelauthorpodcast@gmail.com. Welcome and a big thank you to new patrons Pavlov and G.A. Ria. And of course, a huge thank you to all of my existing patrons. If you would like to support the show and get early access to all of the episodes as well as bonus content, then you can from as little as $2 a month by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. And as this airs, we will, oh no, that will be last week. So as I'm recording this, tomorrow we are having our Poison and Prose session where we all get together on Zoom and we write together and we answer questions and help each other out and generally have a good old chit chat and catch up. Hello and welcome to the Rebel Author Podcast. Today I'm joined by Liz Wilcox. Liz, the Fresh Prince of email marketing, is an email strategist and keynote speaker showing small businesses how to build online relationships, package up their magic, and turn it into emails that people want to read and, most importantly, purchase from. Hello and welcome.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Rebel authors, are you ready to learn about email? Let's go.
Hello. So my assistant tells me before we dive into the topic of email marketing that you were on a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah. So, maybe like you listening, I am multi-passionate. I like to talk about and do lots of different things, right? And one of my dreams was always to be on that show, Survivor, the one, it was like the original reality competition show. And I applied a couple years ago and they emailed me back a few minutes later, talked to me that night. And yeah, I ended up being on the show and doing rather well. No spoilers.
Oh, so is it not out yet?
Oh, it's out. It's out. Just if you haven't watched it, I guess you could Google me. Don't Google me. Listen to this episode first.
So
yeah, it was on TV.
What kind of surviving do you have to do? This isn't the one where they like strip you naked and chuck you in the middle of a desert or something, is it?
No, that's Naked and Afraid. So on Survivor, there's 18 people and they dump you in the jungle and you have to compete and you have to vote each other off. Until there are 3 people left. And then those 3 people kind of debate for the $1 million prize on who had the best game. And the twist of it is that the people you voted out now vote for the winner. So yeah, so that's really the very hard part of navigating, I'm going to vote this person out, but I don't want them to completely hate me and not vote for me at the end.
Oh, that is vicious. I love it. Okay, so one more question before we dive in. What did you learn about yourself after having participated?
I love this question. I learned that I deserve as much grace as I give.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you. Maybe like you, I'm just really hard on myself, or I used to be very hard on myself. And, I expected the absolute best always. But also I'm a nice lady and I give people grace and I, give them the benefit of the doubt all the time. And I had a moment, now you can Google me. You can Google me. I had a moment, an epic meltdown, hissy fit, we'll say. I hadn't eaten in over 72 hours, literally 0 calories. And I threw a fit and they put it on TV. And I realized, as much grace as I give others, I deserve grace. I was actually starving. I was actually with strangers, maybe this is TMI, but I hadn't used toilet paper in 3 weeks. It was a very extreme situation. And the people that I was playing the game with showed me incredible grace. After a couple hours, we were all laughing about it. Some people might have gotten, voted out. Oh, we can't deal with her. She's crazy or whatever, right? But they showed me incredible grace and understanding and forgiveness. And, made light of it. And I realized, wow, I can show, the worst part of me and people still like me. People still want to work with me. Wow, maybe I deserve grace too.
That is hard to hear, actually, for me. Like in a wonderful way. Like I am also very, very hard on myself. So like that kind of hits home in like a really, I've already learned something this kind of episode. So thank you for saying that. That is I'm going to go away and intellect on that when I'm not totes emotion about hearing it. I think that's so beautiful. So thank you for sharing that, like that little bit of
Yeah.
vulnerability. I love it. Okay,
Yeah.
well, would you like to tell everyone a little bit about you and kind of your journey? Like, how did you end up here talking about and probably writing very good emails that got you onto that show? Funnily enough, that's probably how you got on if it was an email that you sent. But yeah, what's your journey? Where do you come from?
Yeah. So, like you listening, I consider myself a writer first and foremost. As a kid, I loved to write. I actually, in America, we call it CPS, Child Protective Services. I wrote a story in the sixth grade that was like so sad. They actually called CPS on my mother because it was about a girl locked in a basement or something. So, first and foremost, I am a storyteller, I am a writer. Right? It wasn't true. My mom's great, not perfect, but I love her. I talk to her, to this day. So that's really like who I am at my core. And how I ended up in the email business, I actually started an RV or caravan travel blog. And I lived in this RV, I lived in this caravan, and then I started Googling how to take care of it. And I found all these blogs and all these people that were making money on the internet so that they could travel full time. And I thought, oh, well, I could start a blog. I've always been a writer, I could blog about what I'm learning and help people out. And so I started the blog and I got really, really good at blogging and writing emails because I find as a writer, emails are just this more intimate channel than posting on social media or anything else. It's where you can truly like express yourself and connect with the readers you want to connect with. And so I got really good at email. I started doing all the things, people tell you to do, write a book, launch an e-course, this and that. And they actually sold because of these emails. So word got around that I was really good at it, and I ended up starting to teach other people. And that's when I realized I needed to sell that travel blog and go all in on email marketing. And that's what I do today.
I love that. I love that, our sort of heart vocation. I'm not quite sure how to describe it, but the thing that we were sent here, we find it serendipitously. We don't start off by doing it, but we sort of find our way there by trial and error. And I always love hearing like the stories about how people actually end up doing what they do. Okay, so let's talk about emails. Do you think in 2024, in this kind of attention deficit era where everybody's fighting for a little piece of other people's attention, do you think people are even reading emails? Like, do they still work as a marketing method? There are so many things competing for our attention. Can they still serve us as a high quality converting tool in our kind of author toolbox?
Yeah. So actually in 2024, at the time of this recording, newsletters, like the roundup type of emails have made a resurgence. A lot of the bigger like gurus that you might follow on social media and YouTube actually have these newsletters where they are, much longer, more intimate. I think I used that word a couple minutes ago. And people are really responding. I love the way Sasha just said, like attention deficit. The way we interact on social media is so different than the way we interact with email, right? On social, we're scrolling. There's a huge deficit there, right? We're just looking for anything to entertain us, to numb us, or whatever we're trying to disassociate from in that moment. And the algorithm is kind of serving us those things. email is so different. It's this intimate channel where we go to look for the things we signed up for, right? I signed up to hear more from Sasha. I signed up. I've got NSYNC in the background. You can't see me, but I've got like a gold plated record. I sign up to NSYNC's newsletter, and guess what? Like every once in a while, they send me like discounts on merch and updates, and so I'm searching for those things I signed up for, right? I consented to, and so absolutely, email and email marketing is working today. We go to our inbox to look for the things we consented to and to solve problems. If I've got a problem about, why isn't my book selling? Or, oh gosh, I just need to talk to someone. I can't get this chapter done. It's been 10 years. I'm just dying to get it done. I don't go to Sasha's like TikTok or whatever and try to DM her. If I'm on her email list, I'm just gonna, search her name. She pops up and I'm going to email her. I know she wrote that email last week. I'm going to email her about this problem I'm having because I know she's the one to help me solve this problem.
Okay, cool. So I'm convinced that email still works. How can we be true to ourselves in emails? How do we put a little bit of our personality in without kind of, oversharing, I suppose? Like, how do we find that voice element? Yeah, without, going OTT.
Yeah, I love that you asked this in particular because there are so many people that do go over the top, right? Where it's like, oh, why are, I just signed up, to learn about gardening. Why are you telling me this? It's just, it's really not my business. And I don't actually care. You're kind of making me care in this way. And so I usually think about it in three pillars, right? Because, yeah, we're all authors. We know stories work and storytelling is a great way to connect. Uh, but I think of it as, three pillars in my email to connect with people in this very like human way and get them to want to read more from me. Number one is that personality piece that Sasha just mentioned. And personality isn't, again, spewing everything, taking all the skeletons out of your closet, right? It's just something that you have in common with other people. For example, I drink kombucha not because I like it, but because my gut is fucked, right? Like it's like the only thing that keeps me regular. Okay. Like that's something that's something relatable, right? Or maybe it's, now I've been on the show Survivor, right? That's not actually a relatable thing, but talking about shows and, NSYNC in the background, me wearing like this vintage top, that's part of my personality, right? So you can bring things from pop culture, bring things from your daily life into your emails, and you don't have to go over the top with it. Even you can't see Sasha, but I'm sure you've seen her bookshelf, right? And she said, oh, this is my pride and joy. That's something she's talking to authors, right? That's incredibly relatable. Like, oh, I wish my bookcase could look like that. Or, yes, I organize mine this way. She's got hers by color, right? That's something relatable. And it showcases her personality, right? The way she organizes her books. So the personality is that first piece. In your emails, also sharing your vision with your readers. And this is something when you're writing, and if you've ever worked with an editor, I'm sure they've told you, like, what is your objective for your reader? If they're reading your poems, your stories, your novel, your memoir, whatever, like, what is your objective? What do you want the reader to take away from this? Right? Where are you guiding them? Where are we going? What's the vision for your reader? What's the vision for the story? Sharing that with your audience in your emails is so important. They got on your bus, so to speak. They need to know where you're driving them, right? For me, it's relatively simple and it's the same. I want you to make money with email marketing. I don't care about your podcast. I don't care about your bookshelf. I don't, all I care about is you make money with email marketing. Every piece of content, every book I write, every blog post, every podcast episode, that's what I'm moving towards with you. So when you write your stories, when you share them with the world, in your emails, sharing that vision. When you read this, I want you to feel X. I want you to see this theme and analyze it, whatever that vision is. And then the last one is your values. And this is not spew your politics everywhere, but there are certain values you have that drive the way you do business and drive the way you write, the way you speak, the stories you tell and why you tell them, right? So sharing that in your emails will certainly connect with those readers that aren't just going to read this book, but they're going to read the next and the next and the next. They're going to leave the reviews. They're going to share with their friends, etc. So again, that's a little bit of personality, the vision you have for your readers, and the values that drive the way you write and the way you storytell.
And how does that connect to your concept of the email staircase, that kind of frame? Is that the framework, or is the email staircase something different?
That's something different. So the email staircase Sasha's referring to is just basically a fun little word for customer journey. First, you've got a follower, turn them into a friend. And then once you've got a list full of friends, turn them into customers. So follower, friend, customer. When we share our personality, vision, and values, we're turning those followers, those casuals, so to speak, into friends, people, again, that are going to read our stories over and over. They're going to share with their friends. They're going to leave the reviews. They're going to ask you when the next book is coming out, right? And so how do we make friends? Again, like we've got to share a little bit of the personality, right? Like, oh, I like Sasha. I love that she has a rainbow bookcase. I have rainbow glasses. I'm already connecting with her, right? Sharing that, shared vision. It's hard to have a good friend who wants something completely different than you in life or wants the world to look completely different than you, right? And then the values, same as the vision, right? It's hard to make friends when your values don't align. So again, turning those followers, maybe somebody finds you in a Discord or on a forum, or you pop up as a suggested read, turning those casual readers or people that just find you on social media, etc., into the friend, into that person who, yes, I love reading her books. I love the way they write about X topic is really, really important.
What do you think are like the foundational pillars of a good email then? So, I get that not every email can be salesy, not every email, we shouldn't be trying to sell all of the time. But what makes a good converting email?
Do people want to read it? Knowing who your readers are, I think, is the simplest way to write something that's compelling. Stop thinking about how does this make me sound or do I like this? Think about who's reading it. Is this what they need to hear in order to do XYZ, in order to click over to my link, in order to, give me feedback on this, in order to leave me a review? Always thinking about what your reader wants versus what your objective is, right? That's going to make a good email. But inside an email, that sounds very like, I don't know, existential. Like, yeah, okay, Liz, thanks for the advice. Not. But inside the email, really just sharing in a relatable way. Like, oh, I met somebody who loves rainbows as much as me, right? Or I walked the dog, or I was 5 minutes late because my kid wouldn't stop talking to me. And I was, trying not to make them feel unwanted, but at the same time, I got a business to run. That's incredibly relatable. You can't see her, but Sasha is like, oh gosh, yeah, that just happened. Right?
Literally.
Right. So she didn't even have to tell me what happened. I just guessed, right? Because I was relating to her. She told me she had a kid. I was like, oh, now I get it. Right. So sharing in a relatable way and also sharing that you are invested in your reader. I wrote this story because you guys told me XYZ, right? This chapter is for all those kids that da da da. And like saying that, I think about this is a weird example, but one of, I think, the greatest poets of our generation is Marshall Mathers, Eminem, Slim Shady. And he writes songs, and in the songs, he always says, like, this isn't for the masses. This is for that kid that feels XYZ. So I know he is invested in his listeners, right? In the people that follow him. And so in your emails, sharing how you're invested, and it could even be, I upgraded my computers because, it kept crashing and I wasn't going to hit this deadline. That shows you're invested in the deadline, you're invested in your readers. It can be really, really simple. Well, I didn't want to work today, but here I am, and I wrote for 30 minutes anyway. That shows you're invested in the process. And people will invest when they know you're invested. So again, that's being relatable, showing you're invested in them. And the last is staying top of mind. People will care if you keep showing up. They're not going to care if you email once every 6 to 12 weeks, right? They're not going to remember who you are. So staying top of mind. And I know this is probably Sasha's next question, at least once a month, making sure you're following up so people remember you. They know you're invested in them as a reader is really, really important.
Okay, so what about when there is a hard sell that's required? Lots of authors get very self-conscious over promoting their artwork, their creativity. It makes them feel icky. It makes them feel vulnerable. So we've kind of talked about thinking about the reader in terms of getting that conversion. But what about when they've got a brand new book that's releasing and really they just need people to buy the book? Obviously, that's, we're not going to go in with that like hard sell, but are there any other things when you really genuinely have to sell a product? Like, how are there catchphrases that work? Is there a particular way of phrasing the ask for help, the ask to buy? Yeah, how should we approach that? And how can they get over that kind of internal ick that they face?
Well, the only way you're going to get rid of that internal ick is to move through it. You can't, what's that song? You can't go over it, can't go under it. You got to go through it, right? Shout out kindergarten. Um, that the confidence is not going to come before the action. So when you have to sell your book, because, raise your hand if you have a stomach. Raise your hand if that thing growls 3 times a day. We all have stomachs. We all probably have other people that rely on us. And so thinking about it from that and just taking action will help. And then the second thing I want you to know is, you wrote your book for you, but you probably also wrote it for the reader or that one person. Like I just said, like Eminem, I didn't write this song for you. I wrote it for that, I wrote it for whoever. So think about that person. If you don't promote your book, they will never read it. They'll never hear that message. And I know your book, you hold it so close to your chest. Maybe it took you years to even, gather up the courage to write the first word. I know writing a book is it's such an intimate experience. And it's so hard to say, hey, here's my thing. Like, don't judge it too harshly, but also, will you maybe give me $10? It feels weird, right? Writing is such a different experience than selling the book, right? Writing it is this special solo type of journey, right? Or it can feel that way. And selling it is this very public, vulnerable thing. But remember, just like I said, when you write an email, stop thinking about you. Think about that person that needs the message. It's the exact same when you go to sell, thinking about, and this is how you write those special phrases Sasha asked about, thinking about your person. Who's that ideal reader? I wrote this for A, B, and C person. I want that person to know X, Y, Z. Those phrases very simply. We don't need any fluffy language. I know some of our fiction writers here, we like to get very creative. You don't have to get creative in your sales process. You can just say, I wrote this book for so and so. I want them to read it and feel this and that. Very direct, very clear language. And if nothing else, let's channel Connie Chung just released a memoir and she got on Instagram and she said, buy my book. I need the money. And I just loved that. Don't you just love that? I just loved it. I was like, you know what? Amen. Sometimes we write the book and we need to sell it because, frankly, we need the cash. So if Connie Chung can do it, certainly we can channel some of that audacity.
I love that. I write for angry lesbians who need sexual empowerment. That's literally who I write for. Or not
Right.
need
So,
it, but want like are engaging in or want it, right? Rather than necessarily need. But yeah, that's
yeah.
that's literally who I write for.
And I love that Sasha could put that in an email today and say, like, you know, whatever she just said, sexual empowerment. And then, like, I hope you get A, B, and C out of this. Or, in one day after reading this book, I want you to try this. In 30 days from now, I hope it feels this way. And guess what? I've already started on the next book, or I've already written these other books if you're excited about it, right? So now she's not just selling the latest, she's selling all of them.
You talk about creating communities via your email marketing. How on earth do you do that? And how does it apply to authors?
Again, it's all about how can I make a friend in the inbox today? How can I, talk to that person who feels so disempowered with their sexuality, right? How can I open up the conversation or whatever your topic is, right? That was using Sasha as an example. And really starting the community is also opening up your inbox for replies. And I know you're an author, you got a lot of stuff to do. Um, but really taking the time for, I call it just inbox chat. And inbox chat is actually, it's a community builder and it's a money maker. It's a money making activity. So asking very simple yes or no questions. Uh, you know, did you read this last story? Have you ever read this book? Even if especially if it's not your book, I was inspired by this book. Have you ever read it? Hit reply yes or no. Then you're opening up a conversation. You're getting to know your reader. And then, down the line, when you feel comfortable, if it's appropriate, oh, well, here's my Amazon author page or wherever you sell, here's my Goodreads reviews or whatever, right? And sending that over. Because here's the thing about community. A lot of people think, oh, I'll build the community and then customers will come. People will buy my book. It's actually the opposite. Customers create community because customers are invested. They're going to read what you wrote because they bought it, right? Hopefully, we don't always read all the books we write, but or we buy is the word I'm looking for. But the customer, they invest, they take action, and then they share. So if you can create a list of buyers, like I said, following that email staircase, then you can create the community. And the community is so important. Why? Because they're going to share your work. They're the ones that leave the reviews. They're the ones that buy the, Christmas gifts and, share your book with a friend. They're the ones that offer it up at book club. Like, oh, we should read this one next, right? That's why we need customers and, to lead to community.
I find this tricky because I think there comes a point in an author's career where they have to outsource the inbox because it gets too much. So I think if you say you have a team, wonder who I'm asking this for, say you have a team and the team responds to your inbox because it's important, it's important to still respond. How can you train your team to make sure that they are still, I guess, representing the important bits of you in order to make the readers feel valued and seen because you don't have the time to reply to all the emails anymore?
Yeah, I love this question. And it circles back to what we already talked about. What is that personality you're sharing, publicly with people? And how can your team emulate that, right? Like for me, it's, the personality is fun and loud and silly, and we're not afraid to make fun of ourselves. And, that's something I really did have to train my team with. I actually have one person on my team. She's my full-time assistant. She answers almost all my emails. And, there was some what do you call it? Growing pains, where she was a lot more serious than me. She's a lot more private, introvert. And I'm like, loosen up. You're not going to get fired if you make a mistake. Don't worry. That's part of who we are here. That's part of the community I'm trying to build. Also, that vision. If they know the vision you're trying to take your readers on, they will emulate it. Same with the values, knowing values. What are my values? I just said it. We're not afraid to make mistakes. We like to have a lot of fun. We believe, in trying to be as equitable as possible. We believe in trying to be as accessible as possible. And so, with those values, the vision I have for my students and a little bit of personality, my team is able to, answer the emails. And honestly, every time I get in the inbox, I see someone, they're not even addressing me anymore. They say, "Hi, Patricia." And then they might put parentheses and Liz if she's reading this, because that's also something you can do in your emails. When you try to elicit responses, you can say, "Oh, Patricia, Chris, whoever your team member is, might be the first one to read this, but they've got your back. That's something we value around here, making sure everybody responds."
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so you've mentioned mistakes in there, which I think is a great segue. What are some mistakes that you see, sort of, maybe not necessarily writers only, but just newer to email marketing people? What kind of mistakes do you see?
Well, I think the number one mistake is not having a welcome sequence. So when someone joins your list, say you're giving them a preview of your next book, or, download to get the epilogue or whatever you're doing, uh, then you just don't send them anything else, right? Maybe they get the thing you promise them, and then you don't share with them, hey, this is the personality, this is the vision, this is the values, these are the expectations. You're not telling them anything. You're just giving them the thing. So you got to have a welcome sequence that, guides them into what's going to happen next. It's the same way as when you listen to this podcast, Sasha comes on, she's an intro. There's maybe, like, hey, this is the Rebel Authors, da 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 da. Today we're talking to Liz Wilcox. She's telling you what's coming, right? We don't just dive in, because then you'd be lost. So
It's
tell
like sex
people
without foreplay.
Okay, amen. Amen. It's
Right?
like nobody, and immediately I'm jumping out of the bed. Like, whoa, this is I'm not ready. I didn't know. This was
Yeah.
unexpected. Now I'm pissed, right? Now I'm mad. And there's this awkwardness, right? So we don't want that. We want the foreplay. We want the, hey, this is what's happening. And speaking of, like, it also gives the reader, email works because it's consent based. And, sure, they consented to sign up, for the epilogue or the whatever, right? But let's tell them what's coming next. Hey, now that you're on my email list, I'm going to email you once a month, on the 1st and the 15th. I'm going to send you XYZ, right? Just let them know what's coming. So it's not like, oh, what's that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's talk about growing a mailing list then. How on earth do you start from zero? Where do you find people?
Starting at zero, for me, I've always just gotten on social media wherever my personal profile is. If I'm biggest over on LinkedIn, or that's where I interact the most, or Facebook, just my personal profile. And I just say, hey, this is what I'm doing. Hey, I'm starting this new author page, hoping to build a community around, this and that theme. If you're interested, I'd love for you to join me over here. And I just send them to a very quick landing page that says, hey, Liz's new thing, sign up, right? So that's the easiest way to do it. Also, I love that Sasha brought up building that community, thinking about what are the themes or the genres that you're writing in, and where are those people hanging out online, or what are they listening to? What podcasts are they listening to? Even getting, yes, even for authors, oh my gosh, get on podcasts, do interviews. I know it's so hard to be the face, but listen, if you don't promote your book and your writing, who will? Like I say it with love, but nobody cares. You have to care because no one else is pushing you to do this. And so getting on podcasts or doing little collaborations with other authors or other people that are, uh, within the community you want to tap into is really, really important. For example, my very first product actually was a book. It was called Tales from the Black Tank. The black tank is where the sewage goes in your RV or caravan. Okay. It was a collection of hilariously crappy RV stories. So where did I go? I went into caravan and RV like travel Facebook groups. I tried to get on RV podcasts. You don't have to be B2B like me to get on a podcast, right? If you're writing about fantasy, well, I could get on podcasts where people play and discuss Dungeons and Dragons, right? If I'm writing a book about survival, maybe I get on some Survivor podcasts. Hey, do you like to watch Survivor? Watch or read this book about XYZ. And maybe I'm giving some tips and I'm talking about my survival book, right? Or, if I'm a fantasy author, I'm talking about, oh yeah, I love Dungeons and Dragons too, or I play Magic the Gathering, and you discuss that on the podcast and then say, hey, based on everything that I've done over the last 20 years, like I actually wrote a book and here it is, right? Get on that visibility train, my friend.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so let's say they've set it up, they've got their autoresponder sequence, they have got their reader magnet. How do they know if it's working other than seeing the numbers on the list grow? How do we know if what we're doing is working?
Yeah, so of course, are people actually signing up? Number two, are people replying? And again, if you've got your teammate on this, they can tell you, right? And so in that autoresponder, that welcome sequence, I want you to have a very simple yes or no question. Yes, it has to be yes or no. Do not, write this existential, like, where are you at in your journey? How long have you been reading fantasy? Well, I don't know, 10 years, maybe 20. It's got to be top of brain, right? Like, have you ever read a fantasy novel? Yes, I have. Or nope, I haven't. This is going to be my first, right? Like, the answer off the top of your head. So making sure there's a yes or no question. If you are not getting replies, then you need to answer or ask a simpler question. It's not working, so to speak. And then when you write your newsletter, when you write those timely, hey, I just wrote this and I'm sending it out right now, email, looking at the click rate. Are people clicking? Is it consistent, right? If I've got a 2% click rate this week, what was it last week? Oh, last week it was 0.5%. What did I do this week that, was way better? And how can I do it again? So looking at those metrics over time really, really helps. And you're not going to like it, but I swear it's a really good metric. Are people buying? Looking at the sales. Oh, I sent an email that day, even if you don't have the techno mumbo jumbo set up. Oh, I sent out an email today and oh, wow, I made 3 more sales than I normally do. Yeah. This week I've made no sales, but the day I sent my newsletter, I made 3. It must be working. I should try to find some more people to join my list. So really making sure you're looking at your sales. You are selling. Do you have to sell in every email? Sasha already told you. No. But even having like a super signature, something on the bottom, the footer of your email, when you're ready, here are some things you can read from me. Book 1, 2, 3, this, that, and the other. If you've got a podcast or social media, you could put it in there, not ready to read a book yet. Here's my podcast. Here's my Facebook group. Here's whatever else you're doing. You can put different resources in there. It doesn't have to be all about, you're selling books, but, seeing if people are clicking on those, if you're getting new members, if you're getting new subscribers, if you're making those sales, then it's working.
Amazing. Wow, this is the Rebel Author Podcast. So tell everyone about a time you unleashed your inner rebel.
Okay, well, I've got a few. Well, number one, I don't know. I unleash it every day. So how much time we got? So, well, number one, writing that book about crappy RV stories. Y'all, the word crappy was in the title. Who puts the word crappy in the title of their book? That's usually you want people to think it's good, right? I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew it was a good idea. People, my audience told me like, "Oh, Liz, you're a good storyteller. You're really funny." So I was like, "Oh, I'll write some funny stories about this life we're living." And it was so out of the box. And I had other, blogger friends and authors like, I don't know if that should be your first book. Like, don't you want to establish yourself as an expert? Like this, how is this going to lend you credibility for what you're trying to do? And I was just like, I just think this is the right move. And it really, really was. I I I made something like, and this is off a $10 ebook, y'all. Like it wasn't even published on Amazon. Like it was just this book. I made it in Canva. I didn't even use like Microsoft Word or anything because I wanted there to be pictures in it. And I sold something like $7,000 in the first few months. I did a pay what you want scale. And y'all, this is like this is what I love about like being a rebel and like doing things the way you want. This book got picked up by an international sponsor that said, we want to use this as a lead generation tool. We think if we give this away for free, like we're going to get a lot of leads is going to help our business. So they gave me $7 for every lead they got with the book. And I ended up making thousands and thousands more from this company that found it on Instagram than, I could have ever expected. So, do your rebel thing, write whatever the hell you want to write, promote it however you want to promote it. And you know what? It'll probably turn out in your favor.
Oh my God, I absolutely fucking love that. How absolutely amazing. Well, thank you for your time today. Would you like to tell listeners where they can find out about you, your kind of services, your whole system, yeah, and anything else that you'd like to add?
Oh my gosh, of course. I'm an email marketer. I'd love for you to join my list so you can learn more. I love working with authors, especially because, like I said, I consider myself a writer first and foremost. You can go directly to lizwilcox.com. In the top right-hand corner, there's a hot pink button. You cannot miss it. It's going to give you a lot of kind of plug and play templates until you get comfortable writing your own emails. So first, you're going to get a welcome sequence. I talked about that autoresponder Sasha mentioned. You're going to get that already written for you. You can take and make it your own. You're also going to get 3 newsletter samples, one to show you how to get people to click, another to show you how to get people to reply. We talked a lot about that today. And the third, how to get people to buy directly from your newsletter. And if that's not enough, 52 subject lines for a year full of prompts, all for free. LizWilcox.com, hot pink button.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And of course, a giant thank you to all of the show's listeners and all of the show's patrons. If you would like to get early access to all of the episodes, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Sasha Black. I'm Sasha Black. You are listening to Liz Wilcox, and this was the Rebel Author Podcast. Next week, I'm talking to Dave Cohen about understanding humour and writing funny fiction. So join me next week for that.
Don't forget to tune in and subscribe on your podcatcher. And when you have a moment, please leave a review.